This is the neural guardian speaking. Perhaps you have experienced this before. You sleep, you take time for yourself, you slow your body down, and still wake up tired. It is not a common physical tiredness. It is something deeper, quieter, harder to explain. An inner weight that does not disappear with rest, vacations, or short breaks. And many people begin to ask themselves, what is wrong with me? Human psychology shows that not all tiredness comes from the body. There is a kind of exhaustion that is born in the mind and in emotions. A tiredness that is not related to lack of sleep, but to an excess of emotional load that has not been processed. When this happens, physical rest helps, but it does not solve it. Because the origin of the exhaustion is not in the muscles, it is in the emotional system. We live in a world that taught us to function in constant mode. Solve, respond, deliver, sustain. Little is said about the inner cost of this. The human mind is adaptable, but it is not infinite. When you spend too much time ignoring what you feel, adapting beyond your limits, or carrying emotional responsibilities that are not yours, the body begins to signal. And that signal often comes in the form of tiredness. This kind of exhaustion appears when you spend too much time on alert. Even if nothing serious is happening, the mind remains tense. Recurring thoughts, constant worries, anticipation of the future, revisiting the past. The brain, trying to protect you, never fully shuts down. And this silently consumes energy. Human psychology explains that the nervous system needs to alternate between states of activation and rest. When this alternation does not happen, the body may stop, but the mind keeps working in the background. You lie down, but you do not rest inside. You sleep, but you do not feel restored. Because what exhausts you is not only doing, it is sustaining. Sustaining unexpressed emotions is exhausting. Sustaining unrealistic expectations is exhausting. Sustaining the image of strength all the time is exhausting. Many people carry a tiredness that comes from the continuous effort to hold it together, without space to feel, fail, or ask for help. This does not show up on medical tests, but it shows up in daily life. Emotional identification is essential to understand this kind of tiredness. When you do not recognize what you feel, the emotion does not disappear, it turns into tension. And constant tension turns into exhaustion. The body ends up carrying what the mind cannot name. There are people who rest physically, but continue to pressure themselves mentally. Even during moments of pause, there is guilt for not producing, solving, or advancing. This inner conflict steals emotional recovery. Rest stops being rest and becomes only a brief interruption of obligation. Emotional education is not only about learning how to deal with crises. It is about learning to notice subtle signals before collapse. Persistent tiredness is one of those signals. It usually appears when you are living disconnected from your inner rhythm. When you do more than you can emotionally sustain, even if outwardly everything seems fine. Many people confuse this tiredness with laziness or lack of motivation, and this creates even more self-pressure. But human psychology is clear. When emotional energy is low, motivation naturally drops. This is not a character flaw. It is a request for adjustment. This type of exhaustion also appears when you live for a long time in environments that demand constant adaptation. Places where you need to restrain yourself, mold yourself, explain yourself too much. Relationships where you feel you must always be available, understanding, or strong. The body may endure for a while, but the mind registers the cost. There is also a tiredness that comes from lack of meaning. When you do things that no longer align with who you are, energy drains away. Even simple tasks become heavy. The emotional effort to continue something misaligned consumes far more than physical effort. Emotional identification helps differentiate tiredness from discouragement, sadness, or frustration. Many times, all of this is mixed together. And when there is no space to separate it, the body responds with general exhaustion. It is as if it were saying, "This way, I cannot continue." Human psychology also points out that highly empathetic people tend to become emotionally exhausted more easily. They perceive the environment, feel others, absorb tension. Without clear boundaries, they end up carrying more than they should. Resting the body does not restore the energy that was emotionally drained. There is also the exhaustion of those who are always trying to understand themselves. Overthinking, analyzing everything, constantly reviewing decisions is deeply tiring. The mind never truly rests. And without emotional education, this pattern perpetuates itself. Resting, in these cases, does not mean only stopping. It means allowing yourself to feel without solving, without correcting, without improving. It means creating spaces where you do not need to be emotionally productive, where you can simply exist. Many people only allow themselves to stop when they are completely exhausted. But the body gives warnings before that. It speaks through constant tiredness, irritability, lack of enthusiasm, a sense of heaviness. Ignoring these signals teaches the nervous system that it will only be heard at the limit. Emotional education invites us to a different kind of listening. To ask, what inside me is tired? It is not always the body. Sometimes it is the mind overloaded with expectations. Sometimes it is the heart carrying unspoken things. Sometimes it is the identity sustaining too many roles. The rest that heals is not only sleeping more. It is easing the mind. It is reducing inner pressure. It is abandoning, even temporarily, the need to handle everything. It is allowing yourself to fail quietly, without judgment. When you begin to recognize this tiredness as a signal, something changes. You stop fighting it and start listening to it. And listening does not mean obeying everything, but respecting what needs adjustment. Human psychology shows that the body recovers faster when the mind feels safe. Emotional safety comes from inner coherence, from living more aligned with your limits, values, and real needs. Perhaps your tiredness is not asking for more rest, but for more truth, more honesty with yourself, less effort to maintain what no longer makes sense, less self-abandonment. Emotional identification allows you to transform tiredness into information. It stops being an enemy and becomes a guide. It shows where you are crossing your own limits, where you are living more outwardly than inwardly. You do not need to blame yourself for being tired. You need to understand yourself. The tiredness that does not go away is a request for inner change, not a personal failure. When you learn to respect this signal, rest begins to work again. Because it is not only the body that rests, the mind begins to relax as well. And when the mind relaxes, energy returns naturally. You do not need to carry everything alone, nor sustain everything in silence. Sometimes, true rest begins when you admit that you are genuinely tired. Your mind protects who you are.